Hello, welcome to my new series, DFS on Technology. In this video, I'm going to talk about Remind, which is a calendar tool that I've been working on and off in my spare time since 1989. I wrote Remind because I couldn't find a calendar tool that worked for me. And here's an example of something that I can do in Remind that I haven't been able to figure out how to do in any other calendar tool. My garbage collection day is every second Wednesday, so every 14 days. Unless the Wednesday is a holiday, then it gets moved to the Thursday. Also, if the Monday or Tuesday of a week is a holiday, then the garbage collection gets moved to the Thursday. I haven't found a commercial calendar program that can handle this rule. And I think the reason is that most calendar programs are graphical. In other words, when you want to create an event, you have to click on something, and then you're presented with a series of choices that the programmer thinks you might need. But if you need something that the programmer didn't think of, you're out of luck. So now, if I have to explain something complicated to a person, I tend to use these things called words, or language. I tend not to ask the person to hold up a big piece of cardboard with various choices and point at them to pick the ones I want. That doesn't work too well. So when I designed Remind, I decided it needed to have a language to describe calendars. So I invented a programming language, also called Remind. Now, there are very many fine programming languages out there like C, C++, Perl, but these are what's called general-purpose computer programming languages. In other words, they can compute anything that is computable. Remind, on the other hand, is what's called a domain-specific language. It's very good at one thing that it does, which is describing calendars, but it can't be used for general-purpose computation. Anyway, I hope that this introduction has intrigued you enough to watch the rest of the video and learn about Remind. And I hope that the rest of the video will intrigue you enough to download Remind and start playing with it. So, without further ado, let's go and take a look at Remind. Welcome! I'm now going to demonstrate Remind. Remind takes as input an ordinary text file, which contains a program or a script in the Remind programming language. And you can create this text file with the text editor of your choice, which I'm sure is a program called Emacs. So let me fire up a text editor. And create a reminder script. So this will be our first reminder script. Rem 5 February 2021 message meeting. That's our program. If we look at it, it's just that one line. And to run it, we run remind and then the name of the file. And it says no reminders. Well, that's exciting. Today is February 4th, and the meeting is February 5th. So if we run remind again, and we pretend that it's February the 5th, which we can do like this, that tells Remind, just pretend today is February the 5th, 2021, you can see that it prints the list of reminders for today. Now, Remind can obviously do a lot more than this. So I'm going to move the terminal window up to the side and open a little graphical tool that illustrates when Remind triggers reminders and how the calendar works. And I'll go into a special directory that is being used by the graphical tool so that I can demo some reminders. Call it 10.rem. And I can say rem 5 February. So let's say I have a meeting tomorrow. Now, as soon as I save this file, the graphical tool will pick up the changes, and you can see it puts the meeting in the calendar. There are other kinds of reminders. Let's say you have swimming every Tuesday. There you go.
And how about if it's somebody's birthday on the 17th of February? There you go. You can see that the February 17th, even though I didn't supply the year, it showed up. Now, if we go to a different year, if we go to February of 2022, you can see that the birthday is still there. The meeting is gone because that's only in 2021, and the swimming is still there. So let's dig deeper into this. The rem command in a reminder file script issues a reminder. That's basically what tells you you have something to do or puts an entry in a calendar. Everything after the rem and before the message, so basically this part, is called a date specification. In this case, the date specification is 5 February 2021. In this case, the date specification is just Tuesday. And in this case, the date specification is 17th of February. So how does Remind figure out when it should issue a reminder? The Remind algorithm works like this. Now, it doesn't actually work the way I'm going to describe it because it would be too slow, but Remind works as if it went through the following process. Starting from today, check if the date specification is satisfied, and I'll get into what satisfied means in a minute. If it is satisfied, then trigger the reminder. If it is not satisfied, then increment the date, so go to tomorrow and check if that one satisfies. And keep going a day at a time until the date specification is satisfied. So let's look at this in detail. Today is February the 4th, 2021. Let's just get rid of these two. We'll just keep the swimming reminder. So on February the 4th, how does Remind know when it should trigger this reminder? So here's what it does. It starts from today. It says, does February the 4th, 2021 satisfy this specification? In other words, is it a Tuesday? No, it's not. So it goes to the 5th. Is that a Tuesday? No, it's not. Tries the 6th. It's not a Tuesday. Tries the 7th, 8th. Finally, when it gets to the 9th, that is a Tuesday. So Remind issues the reminder on the 9th. And you can actually see this in action. If I run Remind on the command line with a special little debug flag, -DT, that's a debugging flag that says, show me your trigger calculations. When a reminder is issued, we call it triggered. And I feed it the program file. You can see that on line 4 of 10.rem, which is our reminder, it calculated the trigger date to be Tuesday, 9th of February 2021. In other words, that's the next possible time that reminder can trigger. So that's pretty good. There are obvious variations, like if you only have a day with no month, then it triggers on the 4th of every month. And there it is, on the 4th of every month. If you have a bunch of days, like that, it triggers on a day that satisfies Saturday or Sunday. So in other words, it triggers on Saturdays and Sundays. Now there's a little wrinkle. If you have a day name and a day of the month number, Remind behaves a little bit differently. So if I say rem, let's say Wednesday 1 message first. What Remind does in this case is the date specification is satisfied on the first weekday, the first Wednesday, on or after the first of the month, which basically means the first Wednesday of the month. And if we go through the months, you'll see that that reminder is triggered on the first Wednesday of every month. There's also a difference if you have multiple days. If I say let's put in a whole bunch of days. Like that. Remind stops at the first weekday that satisfies any of these. So in other words, it'll be the first working day of the month, really, because it's satisfied if it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. So let's change that. Work day. So if we scroll through the months, you'll see that it's triggered on the first work day of the month. May, as an example, it starts on Saturday, the first work day. Monday through Friday is the third. So there we go. You can also have what are called timed reminders. So let's say on Tuesday you have swimming and it starts at 7 p.m. You can see that remind puts the time in the calendar. Now, let's just say that it's Thursday, and right now it's 8 p.m. where I am, and let's say that it starts at 9 p.m. If we say that, then you can, I don't know if you noticed, but in the bottom of the calendar here, it says 1 reminder queued. That's because this reminder is for later today, so a little window will pop up at 9 p.m. to remind me to go swimming. Those are called timed reminders. Now, many times you'll have a meeting, a weekly meeting or a monthly meeting or something, which is normally on a set schedule, but if the day happens to be a holiday, the schedule changes. So, where I live, February the 15th, 2021 is a holiday. Called Family Day. So there we go. Now, if instead of putting rem, I put omit, it still shows up in the calendar, but omit is special. It means that 15th of February 2021 is a holiday. So if I have a meeting every Monday, you can see that normally Remind ignores holidays. It doesn't do anything special. But if my meeting is skipped on a holiday, if I put skip here, you can see that the February 15th meeting is just completely skipped because that's a holiday. If, on the other hand, the Monday meeting gets moved to the next day, if it's a holiday, instead of using skip, you can use after. And in that case, Remind adjusts the meeting Monday. Here it's a holiday, so we move it to the next day. So that's moved to the 16th. And similarly, you can have before, which would move it to the day before, which is probably not what we want because that's a Sunday. So you can also have what are called local omits, where you can tell it basically what the weekend is. So if I go omit sat sun, so now the 15th is a holiday, so we move it before all the omitted days, but Saturday and Sunday are considered omitted as well, so it keeps moving it back until the 12th. So that meeting gets moved to the 12th. That's how you can handle holidays. Now, let's say that you have a Monday meeting, unless it's a holiday. And let's say that your daughter does skating on Mondays, but not if it's a holiday. Like that. So you can see there's a skating and a meeting, but not on the holiday. How about if the rink is being repaired on February the 1st? So you could do that, which correctly cancels the skating, but unfortunately it also cancels your meeting because the meeting takes into account everything that's omitted. So what you can do is you can localize your omits. So what you can do is you can use a command called push omit context, and when you're done, pop omit context. So I'll save this file. And you can see that here on February the 1st, it skipped the skating because of the rink repairs, but it didn't skip your meeting. The way this works is push omit context takes a look at all the omits that have happened in the file until that point, and it saves them away in a special location. Then you can add more omitted days, whatever you want. When you're done, pop omit context restores all of the omitted days to exactly the state that they had when you called push. So in effect, what happens here is on this line here, there's only one omitted day, which is 15th of February. By the time we get here, there are two omitted days, the 15th of February and the 1st of February. When we call pop omit context, any changes we made after push omit context are lost. So this one gets vaporized and we're back to just one holiday. And this is a technique for making exceptions that only apply to certain reminders. If I create a reminder, rem wed message, if I say 2 plus 2 equals, and then I put square brackets, like that, you can see that remind, when it sees square brackets like this, it evaluates everything inside the square brackets as an expression, and we'll get into what expressions look like a bit later. And then it basically removes the square brackets and the expression and replaces that whole chunk with whatever the result of the expression is. So here 2 plus 2 is replaced with 4 because 2 plus 2 is 4. You may say, well, that's kind of useless, but remind has some built-in functions that can be pretty useful. So if I say sunset is at sunset, that's a whole lot more useful. Sunset is a built-in function, and if you don't give it any arguments, in other words, you leave the brackets empty, it defaults to today, where today is whichever box in the calendar you happen to be in. And so here, remind is telling us the time of sunset on every Wednesday. Now, clearly the time of sunset depends on where you live and what time zone you're in. And so defaults for that are compiled into remind, or you can change them from a reminder script. You can set your latitude and longitude and time zone. That's pretty cool, but it's not the coolest thing because you can have expressions pretty much anywhere on the line. So if I say rem when message Easter Sunday is Easter date, if I do that, it tells me when Easter Sunday is. But that's not really what we want. We want Easter Sunday to be put in the calendar on Easter Sunday. So you can go rem Easter date. So if we save that file, I'll just get rid of this one. If we go to April, you can see that Easter Sunday is put on Easter Sunday. If we go to another year, like let's go to 2022, I don't know when Easter is in 2022. I guess it's April 17th. So there you go. Remind can tell you movable holidays like Easter. It also can do Hebrew calendar calculations, so you can have all the Jewish holidays as well. Not going to demonstrate that. Now, expressions consist of pieces of data that have different types. I'm going to quit out of here and go into the terminal for a bit. And I'm going to run remind, just reading from standard input. So one data type is the integer. You've seen that already. If I say message 2 plus 3 times 4, for example. All of those are integers, and you can see that it does the arithmetic precedence correctly. It multiplies 3 by 4, that's 12, adds 2, you get 14. Another data type is a date. So there's a built-in function called today that returns today's date. You can do calculations with date type. So if I said today minus 7 means go back a week. You can see that a week ago, last Thursday, was January 28th. So you can do nice date calculations like that. You can also find out how many days are between two dates. So if I say message, let's say 2021 12/31 minus today, means there are 330 days to go before New Year's Eve. You can also have strings. So if I said message hi plus there. Hi and there are strings, and in that situation, the plus operator just concatenates them together and you get hi there. You can also have times. So if I said, what is 1 p.m. plus, let's say, 90 minutes, that's 2:30. And if I said, what's 3:45 minus 11:22, that tells you how many minutes are between two times. And finally, there's also a combination called a date time. So if I said, what is 2022-0101 at midnight minus current gives me the date time. That tells me that there are 475,428 minutes to go between now and New Year's 2022. Isn't that useful to know? Okay, now that we've looked at how Remind handles holidays and expressions, I'm going to talk a bit more about some more advanced types of reminders. One thing that's pretty common is you might want, for example, the last Friday of the month. Well, let's start something easier. Let's look at the second Friday of the month. How would we write that in Remind? Well, if you look at a calendar like this calendar, the first Friday or the first any day of the month has to be on the 1st through the 7th. By the time you get to the 8th, you're already in the second copy of a day. So the answer is that the second Friday of a month is the first Friday on or after the 8th of the month. So if we save that, you'll see that indeed in February it tells us the second Friday, March, April it's the 9th. May it's quite late. This is as late as it possibly could be, the 14th. That's pretty early, the 9th. The earliest it could possibly be is the 8th, and we see that that happens in October. The 1st is a Friday, so the second Friday is on the 8th. So that's how you can do the second weekday of a month, and I'm sure by now you've figured out that if you change it to 15th, you'll get the third Friday of the month. And also, if you add another 7, so if we say the 22nd, that's the 4th Friday. So you might say, well, the 4th Friday is just the last Friday of the month, but unfortunately that's not always the case, because sometimes a month can have 5 Fridays. So that is the 4th Friday, but it's not the last Friday. So how do we do the last Friday? Remind has a little trick that lets you go back. So let's go back to our first Friday. That's pretty reliable. That always gives us the first Friday. But now what we can do is say, go to the first Friday, and then I'll put minus 7 there. That means, and then go back 7 days. And that will give us the last Friday. And you can see that that happened here. What happened is that Fry 1 would normally trigger here on, that would be March 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. March 5th is the first Friday in March. But then we go back 7 days. That's the last Friday in February. And it actually keeps working, and you can see that in April, which has 5 Fridays, it correctly marks the last Friday. It doesn't incorrectly mark the 23rd. So that's a very cool little technique for going back a day. Now you'll notice I put 2 minus signs in there, and I did that for a reason. Let's say your payday is the last working day of the month. So the last day of the month is easy. That's just the first day, go back 1, piece of cake. That's the last day of the month, is the one before the 1st. But that's not the last weekday of the month. That's just the last day. So what you can do, if payday is the last day of the month, I'm just going to use one minus sign there, and I'm going to tell it omit weekends. You can see that in this case, when it went back one, it didn't count omitted days. So it started on the 1st of March. It went back one, but that was a Sunday, so it didn't count it. Went back another one, but that was a Saturday, so it didn't count it. Went back another one, that one got counted, so that's payday. And you can see that it properly puts payday on the last working day of the month. Here's an example where the last day of the month is not the last working day of the month. In July, the last day is a Saturday, but the payday is the Friday before. And yep, so that worked. This minus with only a single doesn't count holidays. So if, for whatever reason, February 26th were a holiday, you can see that remind keeps moving the payday before the holiday, which is usually what you want. This minus sign does not count omitted days. If I change it to two minuses, well, then we just have the last day of the month, which is not the payday. Sometimes you can have reminders that repeat on a strange schedule, like every 2 weeks, for example. And this you can do with a repeat factor, which I'll demonstrate. Let's say you have a meeting that's every second Wednesday. So we'll pick one day that will be a meeting. So that could be the 3rd of February. And you can write dates like this. You don't need to spell them out with month names and things like you've seen so far. So let's start with that meeting. So we've seen that before. That just puts one meeting in place. But we can change it to say repeat every 14 days. And we do that with an asterisk. And you can see now that it's every second Wednesday. And of course, as usual, holidays are handled. If we have a holiday and we have after, the meeting gets moved after. If it's before, the meeting gets moved before. And if it's skip, we just don't have a meeting on that Wednesday, but all the others are still there. Now let's say you have professional training that goes from the 15th through the 19th. There's another keyword you can use. If I say rem 2021-02 15th through 2021-02 19th message training, that puts the training on the 15th through the 19th. Now this is really just shorthand for something that looks like this under the hood. Rem 2021-02 15th, repeat every day until those are exactly the same. This means starting from February 15th, repeating every day until 2021-02 19th, do that. You can use until with any sort of reminder. So let's say your daughter has skating every Monday. And there's another keyword I'm going to show you called from. And her first skating class is, let's say, March 8th. And her last skating class is April 12th. You can see that it doesn't start the skating until the from 2021-03-08. Then it just repeats every Monday, and it ends on the 12th. After the 12th, that reminder won't be triggered. So you can put from and until in any sort of reminder. Like you could have every 5th day in May 2021. So you could say rem 1 May 2021 times 5 until So that repeats every 5th day, the 1st, the 6th, the 11th. So you can do all kinds of crazy repetitions. Now I'm going to show you some of the more powerful types of reminders that you can create. Let's say that you're superstitious and you want to stay in bed on Friday the 13th. So your first attempt might be to say Rem Friday 13th message bad luck. But that doesn't really do what you want, because in your mind, a weekday with a day number just means the first Friday on or after the 13th. So you'll have a lot of days that aren't Friday the 13th where that reminder triggers. That's not what you want. Instead, what you can do is say every 13th of the month, if it's a Friday, and here's how you do that. You put in a keyword called satisfy, and then we put an expression in square brackets that I'll get to, and then we put our message bad luck. Now, the key is, what do we put in the square brackets? I'm just going to show you, and then I'll explain it. So this reminder will trigger only on Friday the 13th, and I'll show you if you don't believe me. The first Friday that's the 13th in 2021 is August, and there we go, it triggered. The way this works is that this $TW is what's called a system variable. It is set to the weekday number, where 0 is Sunday, 6 is Saturday, so 5 is Friday, of the trigger date under consideration. And basically that means whenever Remind finds a date that satisfies this part, remember how the algorithm works? It goes ahead a day at a time until it satisfies the date specification. Whenever it finds a date that satisfies this part, it says, okay, I have a candidate. It then evaluates this expression. And if this expression returns false, then it doesn't trigger the reminder. Only if this expression returns true does it trigger the reminder. And I'll run a debug session to show you this. So if I run remind minus dt10.rem. Now remember, today is February the 4th. 2021. You can see how Remind tries all the possibilities. The first trigger date that it tries is the 13th of February, but that's not a Friday. Then it tries 13th of March, but that's not a Friday. And it keeps going until it gets to Friday the 13th of August, when that satisfy expression is true. And here you can see it says satisfied. So that's how you would do something like a reminder for Friday the 13th. Now, as you can imagine, this can be very powerful because you can have all kinds of weird and wonderful expressions in here. And I'll get to some of the cool things later on. Okay, now we're going to look at how to solve the problem of my garbage collection date. As you'll recall from the introduction, my garbage is picked up once every 2 weeks on a Wednesday. However, if the preceding Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday is a holiday, then it's delayed by a day. So how do we do that? So let me copy my garbage collection schedule into here. There it is. It put the garbage collection days on the calendar. And let's take a look at the file. Okay, this is a lot more complicated than any reminder file that you've seen so far, but I'll go through it step by step. Let's just forget about those 2 lines and look at the rem file. So this part you've seen before. It means starting from the 31st of October 2012, repeating every 14 days, repeating every 2 weeks in other words. After means if the day is omitted, bump it to the Thursday. This part you haven't seen. I'll get back to that in a while. Print the message garbage and then evaluate this expression and print that after the word garbage. So, what does omit func garb haul do? What the heck does that do? What it does is when remind tries to decide if a day is omitted, if a day is a holiday, it normally looks in all the list of holidays you've provided so far in the reminder script, and if it hits one, then it's omitted. This, by contrast, says instead of doing that, call a user-defined function, because you can define your own functions, called _garbhol, and as an argument, pass it in the date that you're considering triggering the reminder on. So it gets passed in the date that's under consideration. So let me just pretend that February the 8th is a holiday. So omit February 8th message holiday. There we go. You can see that it moved my garbage by a day because the preceding Monday was a holiday. How the heck did it know to do that? Well, this is how. For this date, the 10th, which normally would be a garbage day, remind comes here and it says, oh, okay, cool. This part is satisfied. So I'm going to consider this as a candidate. I'm going to consider the 10th as a candidate. So it passes February the 10th, 2021 into this function. So x in this function is set to the date February 10th, 2021. Now this function contains two parts, part 1 and part 2. And they're joined together with two ampersands. And what that means is this part needs to be true, and this part also needs to be true for the whole thing to be true. So let's look at the first part. The first part is true if the weekday number of the date that gets passed in is 3. Now, it so happens that 3 is Wednesday, because days are numbered starting from 0 on Sunday. And it so happens that the weekday number of February the 10th, 2021 is indeed a Wednesday. So this part is true. Now, this is where all the magic happens. Slide is a built-in function. It takes two arguments. The first argument is a starting date. The second argument is the number of days to slide forward by. So we're passed in, you'll recall, the 10th of February 2021. So slide gets passed 3 days before that. So it gets passed, boop, 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 the Sunday. It gets past the 7th of February. Then it slides forward by 3 days, not counting holidays. That's the key. Slide does not count holidays. Because if you just wanted to add 3 days, you just say s plus 3. You wouldn't need a function. Slide is there to let you skip ahead by 3 days, not counting holidays. So we're on the 7th, and it wants to slide forward 3 days, not counting holidays. So we go here, boop, that's a holiday, we don't count it. We go here, 1, 2, 3. We get to the 11th of February. Now remember X, we started from the 10th and we wound up on the 11th. So this says, is our ending spot different from our starting spot? In other words, is the 11th not equal to the 10th? And that is true. So this whole function returns true on the 10th of February 2021. So when Remind's processing this, it says, the 10th is omitted, so, and I have to move it after all the omitted days, so it can't trigger on the 10th. Let me try the 11th. So it tries the 11th, and again it calls this function, but this time what gets passed in is February the 11th, 2021. Now here, this part, weekday number is 3, is false, because it's a Thursday. So this whole thing is false. So it's not omitted, so Remind puts the reminder on the 11th. It doesn't keep trying to go forward. Now, this little garbdel function is just a handy little function that if it's not a Wednesday, that's what this means, return delayed in brackets with a space before it, otherwise return the empty string. And that puts the little annotation that the garbage day has been delayed. Now you can see this works. If the 8th is a holiday, it gets moved. If the 9th is a holiday, it gets moved. If the 10th is a holiday, it gets moved. the 11th is a holiday, it doesn't get moved. If the 7th is a holiday, it doesn't get moved because it's only the Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. And if the 8th and 9th are both holidays, doesn't matter, it only gets delayed by 1 day, which is the rule. You can figure out how this works if there's more than one holiday, and you can satisfy yourself that it always works. So that is the solution to the garbage problem. I did show you that Remind can print sunrise and sunset times. We can also do moon phases. Let me open up, first of all, the reminder file. Let's just comment out these nasty lines here. You can comment out lines in Remind with a pound sign. So let's bring that one in. So we'll copy that into our special directory. And you can see that it prints the moon phases on the calendar. 3rd quarter, new moon, 1st quarter, full moon, and it prints the time as well, which is okay. But it's not cool. And remember, Remind is all about cool. So let's comment out these lines. We'll take them away. Go away. You're gone. Your history. And we'll uncomment these ones. Oh, that's exciting. Look at that. All this crazy text. What's it going to do? Amazing. It draws the moon phases in the calendar. Let's deconstruct this reminder file. Moon date just is a function. It's a built-in function that evaluates to the date of when the moon is new, 1st quarter, full, or last quarter. So that puts the reminders in the proper space. Special is special, ironically enough. This means don't print a message, but just send a sort of out-of-band message to the back-end program, which in this case is the graphical tool called TK Remind, to tell it to do something different and amazing. Now, the arguments to the special depend on what exactly the special is. In this case, it's a moon, so it wants the phase. I kind of forget what these two other arguments are. I have to read the manual. And this is the time at which the moon is that phase. So this draws, here's a new moon. So the moon date 0 happens on the 11th. It draws a filled-in circle for a new moon, and the time is, well, 2:08 in the afternoon. So you're not going to see that. And similarly for the rest. There are a bunch of other specials that you can have. So let's say that something amazing is happening on February 17th and you really want to highlight it. You can say rem You can do that, and that shades the calendar based on the RGB values. And then, of course, we need to know, well, what exactly is the special thing? And we can have that in a nice blue color, let's say. Whoops, no message. I will win the lottery. Don't know if you can tell that. It's kind of hard to see the colors. So let's make that yellow a little bit less yellow. And you can see the letters come out in blue. So you can create colored reminders in your calendar. Remind can produce text mode calendars as well as graphical ones. So for people who like to live in the terminal, let's make our terminal a little bit bigger. We'll shrinkify the font somewhat. I can go remind -C lap, and I get a nice little text mode calendar. You can see here, I'm going to win the lottery on the 17th. If you want a prettier calendar, you can give it a CL option, which makes it draw nice lines in the terminal. And if you give it the dash at option that fills in your colors. It doesn't do shade. It only does colored reminders. And it also won't do moon phases in the terminal, alas. So to wrap up, I'm gonna show you a somewhat more full-featured calendar. So I've got a whole bunch of demo reminders in another directory, which I will copy in here. Bam! Look at all those reminders. You can see it puts the week numbers in. That's another special, similar to the moon phases. It highlights birthdays. So another neat thing you can do is create a printable calendar. So I'll go to print. Nice options. I'll print it to the file home demo feb.ps. Print. It's done. And if we look at that in a PostScript viewer, let's make that a little bit bigger. Make this a little bit bigger. You can see that you have a nice printable PostScript calendar with your colors and your moon phases. So you can print that out and put it up on your fridge. And of course, this being Linux, there's a million little command line tools. So you can go PS to PDF. Nope, it's a number. I can never remember this. Feb.ps into feb.pdf. And now we have a PDF calendar, which we can pull into a PDF viewer. Let's make that a little bit bigger. Come on, stop being uncooperative. So that's a little PDF calendar. You know, you can scale it crazily. You can see it actually looks pretty nice. And so you can incorporate this into your documents. You can make all kinds of cute little things. The code that actually produces the PDF calendar, by the way, is called rem to ps. And you can run it from the command line. You don't need to use this graphical front end. So if I go, for example, remind minus p12, that means give me 12 months. Dot reminders, rem to ps. Those are just options. Read the man page if you want to know what they do. Let's time it. How long does it take to produce a year's worth of calendars? Wow, 1/5 of a second. And there you go, a 12-page document. That's your calendar for the year. Very nice. Remind has tons and tons of other features. I strongly recommend you download it, play with it, read the man page. Has a little graphical front end that I've been demoing, so I'll show that a little bit. I tend not to use the graphical tool that much. I tend to make reminders by hand, but it's actually pretty useful for learning remind. So let's say I say on the 17th, I've got a reminder like foo. It puts the reminder in the calendar. Here we go. And if you hover over it, you can see it highlights it. You can press that to edit it, and it remembers all your settings. Or you can right-click it, and it'll bring up an editor showing the reminder that it created. So that's pretty neat, because you can create more complicated reminders, like if I click on here, and I say every Tuesday in February of every year, but warn me 3 days in advance and time it at 9 p.m. Give me 15 minutes advance notice, repeated every 5 minutes. And on holidays or weekends, skip reminder. If I say add to reminder file, oh, I forgot to put a reminder body in, so it's barfing at me. Darn. Where'd my dialog box go? There we go. So, magic. All right, that puts the reminder in, but But the cool part is you can open that in the editor to see exactly what Remind did. Forget this tag stuff, that's just for TK Remind. But you can see that it puts Tuesday, February. The +3 is something we haven't seen before. It means give me 3 days warning at 9 p.m. +15 means start nagging me 15 minutes ahead of time. ×5, meaning every 5 minutes. Skip omitted holidays, and also consider Saturday and Sunday to be omitted. So that lets you learn Remind by creating your reminders graphically and then editing them. So let's, no, I didn't mean to do that. Let's get rid of this, delete reminder. Let's get rid of this one, delete reminder. Ta-da, blank slate. Head on over to my website, go to the Remind page. You can see a screenshot, which is just TK Remind. You can download the source code, instructions for building. We even have a Git repo if you want to see the history of Remind. We have a mailing list for fans of Remind, so you can ask questions and get answers. I have presentation slides that teach you how to use Remind. So head on over and start remembering to do things. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you enjoy Remind. Talk to you later. Bye.